Black households in the 1970s and 1980s were filled with items that seemed ordinary at the time. What families kept in closets and basements is now worth fortunes to collectors who understand their cultural significance. Here are 25 vintage items from Black households that Black families who lived through this era will never forget. Original Soul Train memorabilia from the 1970s has become some of the most valuable television collectibles in American history. Tickets to live tapings, promotional posters, and autographed photographs from the show now sell for thousands of dollars at specialty auctions. What families once tucked into drawers as keepsakes are now prized possessions that collectors hunt relentlessly. The iconic Soul Train logo appears on merchandise that has skyrocketed in value over the decades. Promotional items given to audience members, including t-shirts and commemorative programs, have fetched prices that would stun the original owners. For Black families who attended those legendary tapings in Los Angeles, the tickets they saved have transformed from paper memories into genuine investments. Autographed items from Don Cornelius himself command premium prices. Collectors understand that Soul Train represented more than entertainment. It was a cultural institution that shaped Black identity for an entire generation. Vintage Motown and Stax vinyl records from the 1960s and the 1970s have become incredibly valuable to collectors worldwide. First pressings of albums by Marvin Gaye, The Supremes, Stevie Wonder, and Otis Redding now sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on condition. Black families who kept their original record collections are sitting on fortunes they may not realize. The distinctive Motown label with its map of Detroit is instantly recognizable to collectors who pay premium prices for authentic pressings. Albums that were played at family gatherings and Sunday dinners have transformed from entertainment into investments. Promotional copies sent to radio stations command even higher prices due to their rarity. For grandparents who carefully stored their vinyl collections instead of throwing them away, those decisions are now paying dividends. The warm sound of original pressings cannot be replicated by modern reissues, which is why collectors pay top dollar for authentic albums from the golden era of soul music. Vintage Ebony and Jet magazines from the 1950s through the 1980s have become collectible pieces of Black American history. Issues featuring historic moments like the Civil Rights Movement now sell for substantial amounts to collectors and institutions. Families who save stacks of these magazines are discovering that certain issues have appreciated dramatically. The iconic Jet magazine format documented Black life in ways mainstream publications ignored. Issues featuring Muhammad Ali and Martin Luther King Jr. and those that recorded historic events command premium prices. Ebony magazine's larger format allowed for stunning photography that captured Black excellence across generations. Complete runs of either publication from specific decades have sold at auction for thousands of dollars. Libraries, museums, and private collectors actively seek out these magazines because they represent irreplaceable documentation of the Black American culture that cannot be found anywhere else. Antique cast iron skillets passed down through generations of Black families are now commanding serious attention from collectors. Lodge Griswold and Wagner skillets from the late 1800s and the early 1900s have sold for hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars at estate sales. The decades of seasoning that grandmothers built up through years of frying chicken have created cookware that modern manufacturing cannot replicate. Collectors prize the smooth cooking surfaces of vintage cast iron, which were hand-finished using techniques companies abandoned decades ago. Black families who inherited these heavy pans from their mothers and grandmothers often do not realize they own valuable antiques. The patina, built up over decades of Sunday dinners, adds to both the cooking quality and collector value. Specific markings, surprises, and manufacturer logos help experts identify the most valuable pieces. What once seemed like ordinary kitchen equipment is now recognized as both functional art and culinary history worth preserving. Original African art and authentic vintage dashikis from the 1960s and the 1970s have appreciated significantly as cultural artifacts. The Black Pride movement inspired families to purchase genuine African sculptures and masks that are now worth far more than originally paid. Authentic hand-carved wooden figures and ceremonial masks from West Africa have become prized by collectors and museums. Vintage dashikis made with traditional fabrics and authentic kente cloth patterns sell for premium prices compared to modern reproductions. Families who embraced African culture during the Black Power movement often acquired pieces representing genuine craftsmanship from the continent. These items tell the story of a generation reconnecting with their heritage. Original wax print fabrics have become collectible textiles that fashion designers seek out. The cultural significance, combined with authentic craftsmanship, has turned these household decorations into valuable pieces of history. Black Panther party literature and memorabilia from the late 1960s and the 1970s has become extremely valuable to collectors. Original copies of the Black Panther newspaper, membership cards, and promotional materials now sell for substantial sums at auction. Families who kept these items tucked away are discovering that civil rights historians actively seek this material. Photographs from Black Panther events, especially those signed by party leaders, command premium prices. Original posters featuring Huey Newton and Bobby Seale have sold for thousands of dollars. The breakfast program materials represent important social history that museums want to preserve. Buttons, patches, and clothing with authentic Black Panther imagery are highly prized. What some families kept as personal mementos have become important historical documents. Collectors understand that this material represents a crucial chapter in civil rights history that must be preserved for future generations. Vintage Afro picks with Black Power fist handles from the 1970s have become surprisingly valuable collectibles. These grooming tools, once everyday items in Black households, are now sought after by collectors of Black Americana. The metal picks with distinctive raised fist handles symbolize pride and political consciousness during a transformative era. Original picks in good condition, especially still in original packaging, can sell for hundreds of dollars to serious collectors. The designs range from simple raised fists to elaborate sculptural handles that were as much art as functional tools. Black families who kept these picks instead of throwing them away are discovering their unexpected value. The Afro pick became an iconic symbol of the era, appearing in photographs and artwork that documented Black culture. Collectors prize examples with unusual designs or manufacturer markings. What had seemed like ordinary grooming supplies have transformed into cultural artifacts representing Black pride. Muhammad Ali memorabilia from his fighting years has become some of the most valuable sports collectibles in the world. Original fight posters, ticket stubs, and autographed photographs from Ali's legendary bouts sell for thousands at auction. Black families who attended his fights or collected memorabilia are holding significant investments. The Thriller in Manila and Rumble in the Jungle produce merchandise that collectors now hunt relentlessly. Ali's impact extended beyond boxing, making his memorabilia valuable to civil rights collectors as well. Original magazines featuring Ali on the cover, especially from his Vietnam War resistance period, command premium prices. Signed boxing gloves have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars at major auctions. Even newspaper clippings have appreciated dramatically. For Black families who admired Ali and saved items celebrating the greatest, those keepsakes have transformed into valuable pieces of sports history. Original Blaxploitation movie posters from the 1970s have become highly valuable collectibles, commanding serious prices at auction. Posters for Shaft, Superfly, Foxy Brown, and Coffee now sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on condition. Black families who save these posters are discovering their significant worth to collectors and film historians. The bold graphic designs featuring strong Black protagonists represent a unique moment in American cinema. Original theatrical release posters are worth far more than reproductions, and experts can authenticate vintage prints. The soundtracks, especially Isaac Hayes' Shaft and Curtis Mayfield's Superfly, have their own collectible value on original vinyl. Lobby cards and press kits also fetch premium prices. What theater owners once discarded are now prized pieces of cinematic history. Collectors understand that blaxploitation films represented Black agency in ways Hollywood had never allowed. Vintage church fans from Black funeral homes have become surprisingly collectible pieces of African American history. These cardboard fans on wooden sticks were distributed free at churches, and they featured artwork and advertisements documenting local Black businesses. Collectors now pay premium prices for fans showing historic funeral homes and portraits of Black leaders. Fans that families used to use to cool themselves during summer services have become valuable folk art. Fans from funeral homes that no longer exist are especially valuable because they preserve the memory of Black businesses that serve communities. The religious imagery, combined with local business information, creates unique historical artifacts. Some collectors focus on fans featuring Martin Luther King Jr. or other historic figures. Complete collections documenting funeral homes in specific cities have sold for thousands of dollars. What once seemed like disposable items has transformed into irreplaceable documentation of Black community life. Vintage Black dolls from the 1960s and the 1970s have become highly sought-after collectibles that command premium prices at auction. During an era when mainstream toy companies rarely produced dolls with brown skin, the Black dolls that existed represented something precious to children and families. Original Shindana dolls, made by a company born from the Watts community, now sell for hundreds of dollars to serious collectors. These dolls, with natural hairstyles and realistic features, provided representation that was nearly impossible to find elsewhere. Families who kept their childhood dolls in good condition are discovering their significant value to collectors and cultural institutions. The craftsmanship and cultural significance of vintage Black dolls make them important artifacts from an era of limited representation. Collectors understand that these toys represented more than playthings. They were affirmations of beauty and identity for Black children in America. Original Negro League baseball memorabilia has become extremely valuable to sports collectors and historians. Programs, tickets, pennants, and photographs from teams like the Kansas City Monarchs, Homestead Grays, and Pittsburgh Crawfords now sell for thousands of dollars at auction. Black families who save these items, whether from attending games or from supporting their local teams, are holding pieces of irreplaceable sports history. The Negro Leagues represented Black excellence in baseball, when segregation prevented players from competing in the major leagues. Original uniforms, equipment, and autographed items from legendary players like Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson command extraordinary prices. Team photographs and scorecards document an era that might otherwise be forgotten. Museums and private collectors actively seek this memorabilia to preserve the legacy of Black baseball. What once seemed like ordinary souvenirs from weekend games have transformed into valuable documentation of American sports history. Vintage quilts made by Black grandmothers using traditional patterns passed down through generations have become valuable pieces of textile art. These handmade quilts, often created from fabric scraps and old clothing, represent folk art traditions with roots in African and African American culture. Collectors and museums now pay substantial sums for authentic quilts from the GEE's Bend community and other traditional quilting regions. The improvised patterns and bold color combinations that characterized many Black quilting traditions have influenced contemporary art and design. Families who inherited these quilts from their grandmothers and great-grandmothers are discovering their artistic and monetary value. Each quilt tells a story through its fabrics, patterns, and stitching, documenting family history and cultural traditions. What families once used as everyday bedding has transformed into recognized art. Collectors prize the authenticity and craftsmanship that cannot be replicated by modern manufacturing. Original Harlem Renaissance artwork and prints have appreciated enormously in value over the decades. Paintings, prints, and sculptures by artists like Aaron Douglas, Augustus Savage, and Jacob Lawrence now sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars at major auction houses. Black families who purchase art during or shortly after this creative explosion are holding priceless pieces of American cultural history. Original prints and lithographs from this period, even those not by famous names, have increased substantially in value. The visual art of the Harlem Renaissance captured Black life, struggle, and triumph in ways that continue to resonate today. Gallery catalogs, exhibition programs, and artist-signed materials from the era also command collector attention. Families who kept artwork passed down through generations are discovering its significance to art historians and collectors worldwide. What grandparents considered beautiful decorations are now recognized as important contributions to American art history. Vintage Apollo Theater memorabilia from amateur night programs and legendary performances has become highly collectible. Original programs, tickets, posters, and photographs from shows featuring James Brown, Aretha Franklin, and countless other stars now sell for premium prices. The Apollo Theater represented the pinnacle of Black entertainment, and items documenting its history are prized by collectors. Families who attended shows and kept their programs are holding pieces of music history that museums and collectors actively seek. Promotional materials from the theater's Wednesday amateur night shows, which launched so many careers, are especially valuable. Photographs of performances, autographed items from performers, and even vintage employee uniforms have sold at auction. The Apollo's significance to Black music and culture makes its memorabilia meaningful beyond mere entertainment history. Collectors understand that the Apollo documented Black excellence on stage for generations. Original copies of Roots by Alex Haley, particularly first editions from 1976, have become valuable collectibles. Signed copies, presentation editions, and copies with significant provenance now sell for substantial sums at auction. For Black families who purchased the book when it was first released, those copies have appreciated significantly in value. First edition copies in dust jackets that are in good condition are especially prized by collectors. The mini-series memorabilia, including promotional materials, press kits, and original advertisements, commands collector attention. Memorabilia from the groundbreaking television event, including original TV guide issues and network promotional items, also carries value. The cultural impact of Roots cannot be overstated. It changed how Black Americans understood their history and how America discussed slavery. The book and mini-series together represented a turning point in American cultural history, a moment that collectors recognize and honor through their purchases. Vintage hair care products and packaging from Black-owned beauty companies have become collectible pieces of business history. Original containers from Madam C.J. Walker, Johnson Products, and other pioneering companies now attract collector interest. The distinctive packaging, advertisements, and promotional materials from these companies document Black entrepreneurship and self-determination. Families who saved old product containers, store displays, or advertising materials are discovering their historical value. The beauty industry represented one of the earliest and most successful areas of Black business ownership in America. Original Ultra Sheen containers, Afro Sheen packaging, and Duke products from the 1970s have become nostalgic collectibles. Trade show materials, sales catalogs, and company histories also attract collectors interested in Black business heritage. These items represent more than cosmetics. They document generations of Black entrepreneurship and community self-reliance. Vintage photographs documenting Black family life, communities, and historic events have become valuable to collectors and institutions. Original prints by Black photographers Gordon Parks, James Van Der Zee, and Moneta Sleet Jr. command substantial prices at auction. Family photograph collections that document Black life in specific communities or time periods also attract institutional buyers. Albums and loose photographs showing everyday life, celebrations, and community gatherings provide irreplaceable historical documentation. Photographs from civil rights events, community celebrations, and family gatherings carry both historical and monetary value. Families who preserve their ancestors' photographic collections are holding important cultural archives. The visual documentation of Black American life is now recognized as essential historical material worth preserving and collecting. Original concert posters and handbills from funk and soul shows of the 1970s have become highly valuable to music collectors. Posters advertising Parliament Funkadelic, Earth, Wind and Fire, Ohio Players, and other legendary acts now sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars. The psychedelic artwork and bold typography of these concert promotions represent a specific moment in Black musical history. Families who saved posters from shows they attended are discovering their significant worth to collectors and music historians. The venues themselves, many now closed forever, add to the historical significance of these promotional materials. Original ticket stubs, backstage passes, and venue programs also carry collector value. The visual art of funk and soul concert promotion capture the energy and creativity of the music itself. Collectors prize original prints over reproductions, seeking authentic pieces from the golden era of Black concert culture and live performance. Vintage Black fraternity and sorority memorabilia from the Divine Nine organizations has become increasingly collectible. Original paddles, pins, photographs, and chapter materials from Alpha Phi Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, and other historic organizations attract collector interest. Items that document the founding chapters and the early history of these organizations command premium prices from alumni collectors. The cultural significance of Black Greek letter organizations in African American life makes their historical materials valuable. Families who inherited memorabilia from parents and grandparents are discovering interest from collectors and from organizational archives. Vintage photographs of step shows, chapter events, and fraternity and sorority gatherings document community and excellence. Original pledge materials, initiation items, and organizational documents from earlier decades carry both sentimental and monetary value. These items document the tradition of Black achievement and community that Greek organizations represent. Vintage 8-track tapes of soul, funk, and R&B music have become collectible to audiophiles and nostalgia seekers. Original 8-track tapes from Motown, Stax, and Philadelphia International Records now attract collector interest despite the format's technological obsolescence. Black families who kept their 8-track collections instead of discarding them when cassettes arrived are discovering renewed interest in these chunky cartridges. The distinctive packaging and sometimes unique mixes found on 8-track tapes make them valuable to serious collectors. Some albums had different track arrangements on 8-track than on vinyl, creating variants that collectors seek out. The players themselves, especially those from premium car audio systems, also carry value. Families cleaning out garages and attics are finding that these formats they considered outdated have become collectible. The nostalgia for the era when 8 tracks filled cars and living rooms has created a collector market for authentic original tapes. Original civil rights era photographs, documents, and ephemera have become extremely valuable to collectors and institutions. Photographs from marches, sit-ins, and protests now sell for substantial sums at auction and through specialized dealers. Families who participated in the movement and kept photographs, flyers, and organizational materials are holding important historical documentation. Original NAACP membership cards, SCLC materials, and SNCC ephemera attract serious collector attention. Press credentials, reporter notebooks, and other journalism materials from the era also carry significant value. Photographs showing ordinary people participating in extraordinary moments of resistance are especially prized. Museums and universities actively collect this material to preserve civil rights history. Families who kept boxes of materials from their activist years are discovering the historical and monetary value of their personal archives. Vintage signage and artifacts from Black-owned businesses that no longer exist have become valuable pieces of commercial history. Original signs, menus, matchbooks, and promotional materials from restaurants, hotels, and shops in Black communities now attract collector interest. The Green Book era produced businesses that served Black travelers during segregation, and materials from these establishments are especially valuable. Original advertising, letterhead, and business cards from these enterprises document an era of Black entrepreneurship often overlooked in mainstream history. Families who inherited materials from grandparents who ran businesses are discovering their worth to collectors and historians. Neon signs, display cases, and other physical artifacts from closed businesses have sold for thousands at auction. This memorabilia documents the economic self-determination that Black communities built despite tremendous obstacles and discrimination. Original recordings and memorabilia from Black radio stations and disc jockeys have become collectible pieces of broadcast history. Air checks, promotional materials, and station merchandise from legendary stations like WDIA, WVON, and WWRL now attract serious collector attention. The disc jockeys who shaped Black musical tastes and served as community voices left behind memorabilia that historians and collectors actively seek. Original jingles, station identifications, and broadcast recordings document an era when Black radio was central to community life. Promotional items, bumper stickers, and event materials from station-sponsored concerts and community events carry collector value. Photographs of disc jockeys, station tours, and broadcast equipment provide visual documentation of this important cultural history. Families connected to these stations through employment or long listening relationships often kept materials that are now considered valuable historical artifacts documenting Black media history. Vintage cookbooks and handwritten recipes from Black family kitchens have become treasured collectibles, connecting culinary traditions across generations. Original copies of cookbooks by Edna Lewis, Verta Mae Grosvenor, and other pioneering Black food writers now command premium prices from collectors. Recipe cards, notebooks, and scrapbooks compiled by grandmothers document culinary traditions that might otherwise be lost. Handwritten measurements, personal notes, and stained pages tell stories that printed books cannot capture. Collectors and food historians actively seek these personal archives to understand how Black families preserve traditional cooking. Church cookbooks from Black congregations have become especially collectible historical documents. The ingredients and techniques preserved in these pages connect families to ancestors and to cultural heritage. What families once considered kitchen references have become valuable documentation of Black culinary history. Which of these vintage items from Black households do you remember most? Drop a comment below sharing your stories. Hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss another trip down memory lane.